Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Councilmember Weiss will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This week we have Monsignor John Cody of the Catholic Diocese of Columbus to pray with us. Monsignor, welcome back to Council.
Thank you, President Hardin. It's good to see you
Yes.
and to some of my friends on council. It's wonderful to be here tonight. It brings back a lot of happy memories. Let us pray together, friends. Good and gracious God, we ask your presence among us to inspire the members of Columbus City Council as they consider the needs of the city of Columbus, our home, and our community. We also ask you, Lord, that in the deliberations that they would hold in their minds and hearts those of our brothers and sisters who live on the margins of our society, the poor, the homeless, the hungry, the lonely, the forgotten and neglected of our great city. Just as you have been generous to us, Lord, assembled here, may we be generous in our concern during this meeting, and especially that the members of council will share those concerns on behalf of those people who are forgotten. Help the members of council as they respond to the problems, hopes, and aspirations of our citizens. In all things, Lord God, help them to always reverence and appreciate the citizens who look to this council to always keep service to them in mind and to hold sacred the trust our citizens have placed in them. In all things, we depend on your guidance and your providence. May your presence, Lord, be constantly in our minds, and the values that you have taught us always be in our hearts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, President Hardin.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Acauer, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Hardin. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Acauer, Dorans, Green, Remy, White, President Hardin.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, the journal is approved. This week's communications received by the city clerk offices are listed on the agenda and will be published in the city bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read to the record?
Not this time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll go around the dais for updates and resolutions from my colleagues, starting with Councilmember Bangston.
Thank you, President Hardin. First up this evening, we will have an update from our Department of Technology on the ongoing cybersecurity incident. I will now turn the floor over to Deputy Director Pam O'Grady.
Good evening, President Hardin, President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Bangston, and members of council. I'm here representing Director Orth, who is under the weather. Thank you for allowing me to provide an update on our response to the recent cyber attack since our last briefing on January 13th. Addressing this incident remains our highest priority. We've made more progress since the last update. We have hardened and remediated additional 2 applications, bringing the total remediation rate to 94%. Our most critical systems have been restored, and we continue working diligently to fully restore all remaining systems. As Director Orth mentioned at his last update, a group of systems requires major change to a core infrastructure component, and when completed, many of the remaining applications will return to full production. We are receiving weekly Experian reports. There have been additional enrollments since the last update. We encourage all city employees, residents, and those affected by this incident to take advantage of this resource. To provide ample time for enrollment, the deadline has been extended to March 31st, 2025. Details on the enrollment are available at columbus.gov/cyber. In closing, cybercrime remains a persistent challenge for governments, businesses, and individuals alike. We remain committed to recovering from this incident, supporting those affected, and strengthening our systems to prevent future attacks. Thank you for your patience and continued support during this process. This concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions, mindful of the constraints imposed by the ongoing investigation.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, seeing none, thank you again for that update. One additional announcement, Council President, our final budget hearing, originally scheduled for this Tuesday, well, tomorrow, has been moved to this Friday at 1 p.m. Written testimony must be received by 9 a.m. this Friday and emailed to Jonathan Brown in my office at jbbrown@columbus.gov. All persons wishing to speak during the hearing in person or via WebEx must also email Jonathan Brown at jbbrown@columbus.gov by 9 a.m. on Friday, requesting that they be added to the list of speakers. Each speaker will be limited to remarks lasting no longer than 3 minutes. All meetings will be live streamed on the city's YouTube channels and Facebook pages. And I just want to again thank the administration as well as all my colleagues as we have gone through this budget process and looking forward to that hearing and take up passage for the 2025 operating budget at our February 10th meeting. With that, that is all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rosa de Padilla.
Nothing from you. Thank you.
Councilmember De Alcar. Press Pro Tem.
Thank you, Council President. I do have 2 resolutions tonight on our agenda, Resolution 0020X-2025 and Resolution 0021X-2025, that is celebrating the Bishop Watterson State Championship football team and women's soccer team. Unfortunately, we had a scheduling error with those 2 teams, so we are actually going to bring them back at another meeting to celebrate those state champs. So at this point, I will move to refer both of those resolutions back to committee at this time. I'm sorry, I'm going to do one at a time. The clerk is telling me not to get ahead of myself. Thank you, clerk. So I will first move to refer Resolution 0020X-2025 back to committee.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Refer to committee.
Thank you. And next, I will refer Resolution 0021X-2025 back to committee.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Refer to committee.
Thank you, Council President. Look forward to having them down here in the coming weeks. Thanks. That's all I have.
Councilmember Green. Councilmember Remy.
Thank you very much, Council President. Just a reminder, the 2025 Cleaner Columbus Citywide Cleanup is April 5th and will kick off from Goodale Shelter House. For more information on this year's cleanup, please email cleanercolumbus@columbus.gov. We look forward to seeing everybody on April 5th. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember White.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to take a moment to wish my aide, Chelsea Golterman, a happy birthday.
Aww.
She is conveniently hiding at home watching this hearing. But if you have her number, text her, call her, and when you see her in public, wish her a happy belated birthday. Thank you.
That was a good use of your announcement. That was great. That's so sweet. Before we go on, I want to take a moment to recognize that today is Holocaust Remembrance Day. Today, we join communities across Columbus and the world in solemn remembrance of this tragedy when millions of Jews and others lost their lives to the unimaginable hatred and injustice. So today is a solemn and difficult day for many, but as the mayor said last week, this is a welcoming city and will remain one for all of our residents. Now, if there are no other comments from my colleagues, I'd like to hold a moment of silence. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions, announcements from our elected officials? Hearing none. Are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from consent action portion of the agenda? Hearing none, may we now have a motion to waive reading of the titles of 30-day legislation by the clerk? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcara, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of today, 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda?
Finance and Governance Committee, ordinances 72, 117, and 118-2025. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinance 159-2025. Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, ordinances 36, 38, and 192-2025. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinances 30, 68, 74, 113, 183-2025. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, ordinances 28, 56, and 129-2025. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinance 3574-2024 and 3575-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 3311-2024 and ordinances 69, 81, 82, 83, 89, 107, 119-2025. Zoning Committee, ordinances 3573, 3577-2024, 163, and 193-2025. And then under variances, 3578-2024 and ordinances 123 and 199-2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We don't have any speakers on the first reading portion of the agenda, so the following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk now read those into the record?
Resolutions of expression 13X, 14X, 22X, 15X, 8, 11, 12, and 17X-2025. Finance and Governance Committee, ordinances 73, 161, 235-2025. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinances 2, 39, 76, 105-2025. Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, ordinance 3449-2024. Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, ordinances 86, 94, 112-2025. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinance 3588-2024. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, ordinances 3790 to 210-2025. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinance 44-2025. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinance 78-2025. Under Rules and Policy Committee, we have appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A0192, 224, 225, 226, 2024 and 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29-2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Again, we don't have any speakers on the consent portion of the agenda. So if there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, may I have a motion for approval of these items designated consent? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcara, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Consent agenda is passed. Before we move any further in our meeting, our first piece of business today is to fill the vacant seat for District 7 left by Councilmember Shayla Favor. This is our first time filling a vacancy under our new at-large district model. We had over 30 people apply who lived in the district. We narrowed that down to 10 finalists, and we interviewed all of those finalists, in addition to holding a hearing where we heard from the community. What we learned is what we know, that District 7 has a deep bench of public servants, people already doing the work to advocate for their communities and a better neighborhood. And we are blessed to have such a tough choice today. So now, as provided for in Columbus City Charter, Section 8, and Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22, council will go into executive session to consider that appointment of an applicant to fill the vacancy on this council created by the resignation of Councilmember Shayla Favor. No vote or formal action of any kind shall take place under executive session. Following that executive session, council will reconvene back into this regular meeting. Any votes taken on the matter will take place and recorded as part of this meeting. So may I have a motion to go into executive session? Clerk, please call the row.
Mr. Bangston? Yes. Ms. Barosa de Padilla? Yes. Ms. de Alcauer? Yes. Mr. Dorans? Yes. Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Remy? Yes. Mr. White? President Harden?
Yes, we are in executive session. We are back on the record for regular meeting number 4. We would like to move forward with the appointment of a new member of Columbus City Council to fill the vacancy at this time. I'd like to open the floor for nominations as for a member of Columbus City Council. Are there any nominations?
Council President, I would like to nominate Otto Beatty.
Are there any other nominations for the role of Columbus City Council member? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Mr. Bankston? Yes. Ms. Barosa de Padilla?
Yes.
Ms. Day Alcower?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Green? Mr. Remy? Mr. White? President Harden?
Yes, congratulations, Councilmember Beatty. As I said before we went into this vacancy process, council had the privilege of considering many outstanding candidates. What I heard from my colleagues in executive session is we wanted a council member who would be ready to address the biggest issues facing our city on day one. And in that view, this council, that is housing. Otto is someone who not just has strong ties to the neighborhood, he has used his background in real estate, business, and law to mentor others who similarly want to learn to be a part of the solution. Even though Otto is new to council, he is not new to service, and having been on multiple city, state, and nonprofit boards and commissions. So on behalf of a grateful community, we thank you for stepping up. We would be remiss not to thank all the applicants who put themselves forward. We know that even just by submitting yourself to the process, that took sacrifice. And we don't see this as a no. This is not a no to service. It's actually an invitation to serve with us in other ways going forward. We have a lot of work to do, and all the folks that we talk to are ready to serve. May I have a motion? We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll continue with regular business. May I have a motion to recess regular meeting number 4? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Day Alcower, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden?
We are in recess. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Day Alcower, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden?
We'll now proceed with the second reading of 30-day postponed and emergency legislation. The first committee to come before council is the Finance and Governance Committee. The committee is chaired by Councilmember Bankston. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. First up tonight in the Finance and Governance Committee, we have Ordinance 0079-2025 to appropriate and authorize the city auditor to transfer $11,221,783 within the debt retirement fund to authorize the city auditor on behalf of the Department of Public Service to appropriate $1,400,000 in the mobility debt retirement city parking meter contribution subfund to authorize expenditure for the purpose of providing secondary funding in the event that Franklin County Convention Facility Authority cannot meet its debt obligation and to declare an emergency. This ordinance is a routine annual accounting measure that establishes a fiscal backstop for the Franklin County Convention Facility Authority in the event that they are unable to meet their debt obligation. We share this obligation with the county. Again, this is a accounting move that we do to ensure those funds. It stays within the city coffers. And also, I think it is important to note that we have never had to rely on this because our Convention Facility Authority continues to meet their debt obligations. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Day Alcower, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden?
President, passed.
Next, we have Ordinance 0080-2025 to authorize the city auditor to appropriate and expend up to $963,847.20 within the debt retirement fund for reimbursement to the River South Authority to make lease payments, to authorize the city auditor on behalf of the Department of Public Service to expend up to $1,841,000 within the Mobility Enterprise Fund to the River South Authority to make lease payments and to declare an emergency. Similar to the last ordinance, this is a routine annual appropriation that funds lease payments for several properties via the Rivers South who manage several downtown properties slated for redevelopment that the city has a stake in. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have in my committees this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Public Service and Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Rosa de Padilla. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. I have two ordinances today in public service. First is Ordinance 0008, 2025, to authorize the Director of Public Service or a designee to enter into agreements with the Columbus and Ohio River Railroad Company, a subsidiary of Genesee and Wyoming Incorporated, relative to the arterial street rehabilitation Cassidy Avenue widening project, to authorize the encumbrance of an expenditure of up to $1,053,025 from the Streets and Highways Bond Fund, and to declare an emergency. The Cassidy Avenue widening project that will add turn lanes on Cassidy Avenue where it intersects with Fifth Avenue just north of Bexley. This project also includes installing sidewalks, a shared use path, replacing the existing traffic signal, installing street lighting and trees, and replacing 12 feet of water main line. A portion of this work will either cross or be located, it actually is located very near railroad tracks operated by the Columbus and Ohio River Railroad Company. The purpose of this legislation is to authorize the director to enter into a construction and maintenance agreements with the railroad company to identify and mitigate any conflicts between rail operations and public infrastructure as the city works to complete this project. The services in the agreement include planning, review, and inspection, and are required to, in order to comply with current railroad regulations. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0055, 2025, to appropriate $10,150,000 from the unappropriated balance of the Municipal Motor Vehicle License Tax Fund for anticipated 2025 operating expenditures for the Department of Public Service, Divisions of Infrastructure Management and Traffic Management, and to declare an emergency. The Municipal Motor Vehicle Tax License tax has been levied by the City of Columbus since 1987. This money is used for operating expenses consistent with the 2025 budget. This ordinance is an example of Columbus residents' license fee dollars at work. Essentially, there are several fees associated with motor vehicle licensures and renewals, some of which go to entities like Franklin County, while others support Columbus City Services. This money is used to support the maintenance of our right-of-way, such as purchasing salt, asphalt, limestone, and equipment like snowplows and bucket trucks. Funding mechanisms like this in ordinance with the Ohio Revised Code ensure that the maintenance of our public infrastructure isn't solely based on the health of the city's income tax base. Do my colleagues have any questions? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. That's all for me this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, chaired by Councilmember Day Alcar. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. We have one ordinance from my committee this evening, Ordinance 0064-2025, to authorize the city attorney to file complaints in order to immediately appropriate and accept the remaining fee simple and lesser real estate necessary to timely complete the Alum Creek Trail Mock Road Connector project, and to authorize an expenditure of $40,616. This is the final step in an eminent domain action the city is pursuing to acquire land in the vicinity of the Alum Creek Trail at Sunbury and Mock Roads. This will allow the department to make, improve, or repair certain portions of the public right-of-way of the trail heading west and connecting directly to the city's new Hudson Street Greenway. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. That's all for me this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, chaired by Pres Pro Tem. Pres Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight we have ordinance 0024-2025 to amend the management compensation plan, ordinance number 2713-2013 is amended by amending section 5E and declared emergency. This ordinance amends the management compensation plan by updating the 2025 elected official salary. Emergency actions requested for this legislation in order to meet obligations to employees and departments by amending the established compensation plan by January 27th of 2025. Want to pause and allow Director Moses from our Department of Human Resources to sort of walk us through how this process works. The city a number of years ago had set up an independent commission to review this type of compensation plan and how that comes before this body. Director Moses, floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Dorns, President Harden, members of council. The Citizens Commission on Elected Official Compensation is required by the Columbus City Charter to recommend the salary of each elected official, including an annual cost of living adjustment that cannot exceed the average increase to the Consumer Price Index during the preceding 4 years. The Commission meets and makes recommendations years in advance because elected officials cannot benefit from a pay increase legislated during their current term in office. The Commission meets every 4 years. The 2018 Citizens Commission on Elected Official Compensation made recommendations for elected official salaries for the period beginning January 1, 2022 through December 31, 2025. As a result of the recommendations of the 2018 Citizens Commission on Elected Official Compensation and the subsequent passage of Ordinance 3300-2018 by City Council on December 6, 2018, a cost of living adjustment of 4.75% will be applied to all elected official salaries as of January 1, 2025. The pay adjustment was reflected in the January 9th, 2025 paycheck.
Thank you, Director Moses. Any questions from my colleagues about this legislation for the process that brings it to this body for approval? Seeing none, I would move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. All I have my committees at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, chaired by Councilmember Remy. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Council President. Tonight I have two ordinances in public safety and criminal justice. The first is 99-2025 to authorize an appropriation of $1,718,861.18 from the unappropriated balance of the Special Revenue Fund for continuing professional training for the Division of Police and to declare an emergency. This appropriation will be used by the Division of Police for officers to attend seminars, instructor development, and training supplies. In 2007, Ohio Senate Bill 281 was signed into law, thereby enacting a mandatory continuing professional training program for Ohio peace officers. These training requirements can be found in Ohio Revised Code, Section 109.802. The Division of Police complied with this mandate and has received consistent reimbursements from 2008 through 2024. State law mandates that these funds be kept in a separate account and be used only to pay the costs of continuing professional training programs. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
The next ordinance I have is 125-2025 to authorize the Public Safety Director to enter into a contract with Target Solutions Learning, LLC, for computer-based distance learning services for the Division of Fire, to authorize the expenditure of $223,305.59 from the general fund, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, and to declare an emergency. Since 2008, the Columbus Division of Fire has contracted with a computer-based learning content provider for their distance learning project. The Fire Division's distance learning project was implemented to provide remote training in all fire stations via a computer network. A computer-based training content provider is used to continue to provide and implement training, scheduling, and logging of employee training history, as well as software updates and support for the Fire Division. Columbus Fires contracts with Target Solutions Learning to deliver online fire and EMS continuing education under the parent company Vector Learning. Deputy Director Holloran, can you speak to the waiver of competitive bidding on this particular piece of legislation?
President Harden, President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Remy, thank you. Target Solutions is the sole provider of this software that the Division of Fire has been using, as you said, since 2018. It creates valuable efficiencies for remote learning for the Division of Fire employees, as well as for tracking continuing education and for division-wide communications, and the Division of Fire would like to stay with this provider.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Council President, that is all I have in Public Safety and Criminal Justice this evening.
Thank you, Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, chaired by Councilmember White. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. I have two ordinances in Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee this evening. First, I have 97-2025 to authorize the Director of the Public Utilities to modify and increase the master services agreement for the purchase of wholesale electric power and associated services with American Municipal Power Incorporated for the Division of Power, to authorize the expenditure of $65,070,950 from the Electricity Operating Fund and to declare an emergency. The funds authorized by this ordinance will cover the cost of power supply and additional ancillary services such as diesel generator maintenance, representation on federal power issues, staff training, participation in journeyman line worker safety and training programs. This ordinance is being passed as an emergency in order to allow the purchase of power needed to keep the Division of Power's operations running safely. The invoices covered by this appropriation comprise the largest component of the Division of Power's budget, and timely payment requires access to 2025 operating funds soon after the expected passage of the budget. Let me stop there. And Deputy Director, anything else you would add?
President Harden, President Pro Tem Dorans, and members of council, passage of this $65 million ordinance with American Municipal Power will allow us to continue providing power to our 18,700 customers during 2025. I will note that the Division of Power has historically purchased wholesale purchase power for its customers by locking in a fixed energy charge. We usually do that several years in advance of the actual contract year. In this case, we entered in a contract in 2017 for this period of 2025. I'll also note that we do include the purchase of green power in our contracts or renewable energy credits at a specific volume and rate as well.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Any questions, comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And last, I have 108-2025 to authorize the Finance and Management Director to associate all general budget reservations resulting from this ordinance with the appropriate current and pending universal term contract purchase agreements for the purchase of water treatment chemicals for the Division of Water, to authorize the expenditure of $27 million from the Water Operating Fund, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance will allow for the purchase of the chemicals necessary for the Division of Water to continue providing safe and reliable drinking water to the citizens of Columbus and surrounding communities. The emergency designation was requested by the department to avoid the delay of purchasing the chemicals required for water treatment process. Again, Deputy Director, anything else you would add to this?
President Harden, President Pro Tem Dorans, and members of council, thank you. This is a UTC contract, universal term contract, that we enter into every year. It's got about 14 different chemicals that we feed at all three of our water plants, so it's a very critical component of the water treatment process.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. That is all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last committee to come for council is the Rules and Policy Committee. I chair that committee, and I have Ordinance 3457-2024. It's to repeal and replace Section 4565.13 of the Columbus City Code to incorporate certain administrative modifications related to affordability requirements and qualifications for owner-occupied housing units utilizing the waiver provision of Chapter 4565. This legislation represents a tweak to our rules for the CRA program to help streamline the development process and alleviate bottlenecks in the approval of affordable housing in Columbus. Right now, CRA projects have to meet the Ohio Housing Finance Authority standard of owner-occupant spending no more than 35% of their gross income on their housing. That is the best practice, but some people may qualify for federal programs through Veteran Affairs or FHA loans and not meet this standard. What this legislation does is let the Director of Department of Development still bring us housing development agreements that meet another standard for affordability and let council be able to consider those. Additionally, so the department can begin to utilize this code change right away to approve affordable housing development projects. We do plan to pass this legislation on emergency so that it goes into effect right away. So if there are no additional comments from my colleagues, I move to amend to emergency. Clerk, please call the row. We have a speaker. We have a speaker. And that is Mr. Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins, welcome back to council. Thank you.
(1612) Arlington Avenue, Mr. Nathaniel George Wilkins. I will be speaking in favor of this, 3457, 2024. I knew we're talking about all people, but I would like to see this a little bit lower, up to 28. It seems like we're leaving out the multi-disability people, visually impaired and multi-handicapped. And I would just like to see this be in place for 145 years. I do believe there's a lot of aging people that's still living out here today, that's in wheelchairs, walkers, and disabilities, and blind folks out here, hearing impaired. So I would just like to have more clarification on this. What is the time frame? And I would like to see this in place for 145 years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. If we vote on this, it'll be in place until another council votes it out. Maybe it will last 145 years. I would say that what this simply does is allows the Department of Development to bring modifications to council for council to consider. And even as those are brought forward, we would consider them and have public comment to consider. So if there are no further comments, did I already move to amend? I move to amend. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amended. Now I move for passage. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed. Seeing no further business coming before council, is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Meeting is adjourned. We have one non-agenda speaker, and that is Mr. Wilkins. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, the journal is approved. We'll now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Dorans chairs that committee. All members serve on it. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Before we begin tonight's zoning agenda, first a little bit of housekeeping. Will the clerk please read the numbers of legislation in the zoning committee this evening that require waiver of second reading?
0092-2025 and 0093-2025.
Thank you, Clerk. I now move to waive second reading in those items read aloud.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amended.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Clerk. Now, allow me to briefly explain our current rules pertaining to speaking for council on rezonings and variances. We'll hear a staff presentation for ordinance that have a disapproval from a recommending body, or if we have a public speaker sign to speak against an ordinance. We permit 3 speakers on each side of an ordinance, 3 proponents, 3 opponents. We ask that those speakers limit their remarks to 3 minutes per the standard rules of City Council. All speakers on council variance, including city staff, area commissioners, applicants, and members of the public, will be sworn in before they give testimony. Representatives of the Area Commission are always able to speak on an ordinance. They do not need to fill out a speaker slip, but we do ask you alert city staff of your intention to speak this hearing. We do not have any public speakers fill out speaker slips for tonight's hearing. On the advice of the city attorney's office, I will now swear in city staff. Please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer in pains and penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. Thank you. Please let the record reflect that Eastman Johnson for the Department of Building and Zoning Services has been sworn in. First, we have ordinance number 0126-2025 to rezone 5656 Bixby Road, 22.30 plus acres located on the north side of Bixby Road, northeast of the intersections on US Route 33 from R Rural District to LAR1 Limited Apartment Residential District. The site consists of one parcel developed with agricultural uses and a single-unit dwelling. This is considered phase one of a proposed development of apartment complex consisting of a maximum of 439 units. 2 additional parcels will be included in the overall development site upon annexation, and this rezoning application will be amended to incorporate that property, which is labeled as phase 2 on the site plan included with this ordinance. The proposal has approval from city staff, the Development Commission, and Greater Southeast Area Commission. Do my colleagues have questions or comments? Seeing none, I first move to amend to emergency.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amended.
Thank you. I now move to pass as amended.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Next, we move to the council variances. We have ordinance 0092-2025, granted variance provisions of section 3332.38G, private garages, 3332.38H, private garages, 3332.21D, building lines, and 3332.26C, minimum side yard permitted the Columbus City Codes for property located at 768 South 3rd Street to allow habitable space above detached garage with reduced development standards in the R2F residential district. Site consists of one parcel developed with a single-unit dwelling. The applicant requests a council variance to allow habitable space above a garage. A council variance is required because the current district does not allow a habitable space above a detached garage unless connected directly to a habitable space in the dwelling. The variance is to conform the building setback line, side yard for the existing single-unit dwelling, and a variance to increase garage height are included in this request. Proposal has approvals from city staff and the German Village Commission. I first move to accept the staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Accept it.
Thank you. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopt it.
And finally move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0093-2025 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.035, R3 Residential District, 3312.49 required parking, 3332.05A4 area district lot width requirements, 3332.19 fronting, 3332.25B maximum side yard permitted, and 3332.26B1 maximum side yard permitted, and 3332.27 rear yard of the Columbus City Codes are property located at 1214 and 1220 Madison Avenue to allow 2 single-unit dwellings on each lot with reduced development standards in the R3 residential district. The site consists of 2 parcels developed with a single-unit dwelling. The applicant requests a council variance to allow a new dwelling unit above attached garage, also known as carriage house, for each lot. The council variance is required because the current district does not allow for 2-unit dwelling on one lot. Variance is required. Variance to parking, rear yard, maximum side yard, minimum side yard, fronting, lot width, and area lot are also included in this request. The proposal is approved from city staff and the Near East Area Commission. Do my colleagues have questions or comments? Seeing none, I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopt it.
Thank you. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopt it.
Thank you. And finally move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. And finally, we have ordinance 0127-2025 to grant a variance provisions of section 3333.35G private garage of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 5656 Bixby Road to allow increased garage height in the LAR1 Limited Apartment Residential District. This companion variance to the rezoning we considered earlier tonight. 2 additional parcels will be included in the overall development site, again, upon annexation. This council variance application will be amended to incorporate that property. This proposal is approved from city staff and the Greater Southeast Area Commission. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Accept it.
Thank you. Next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopt it.
Thank you. Next move to amend to emergency.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
amended.
And finally, move for passage as amended.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, Council President. That's all we have to tonight's zoning agenda.
See no further business come for the zoning committee. Is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorance Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adjourn.